Hello and welcome to Marathon Week and the 124th Virtual Boston Marathon. My name is Mark Buciak, member and vice president of the QCC. We're so happy that you're here with us. And we are, first of all, we're going to tell you the QCC stands for Quarter Century Club. Members have run 25 consecutive Boston marathons as a minimum to be in this club. We have hundreds of Boston marathons in our completion, and the purpose of this video is to share our knowledge, our tips, and our stories with you. So sit back, relax, be ready to get some education, some tips, some humor, and some stories. So what I'd like to do first is introduce my fellow QCC members, and we're going to start off with Ron, somewhere out in an undisclosed location in Maine. He's our founder of the QCC and the president of the QCC. Ron, self-introduction, please.
I formed the Quarter Century Club in 2001. It was supposed to be to honor the achievements of Johnny Kelly. He, of course, is Mr. Boston Marathon, 58 finishes. He had 24 consecutive year streaks. So when I started out, we started out with 24 years as a minimum. We eventually, very shortly during that first year, thrown it around among the membership, and there were all kinds of names suggested. Over the Hill Club, I forget them all. There was about 20, 30 of them. Originally, we had 16 members, and Ben was at that point one behind Neil Wygant, who had held that position until 2011, when at his 45th year and injuries beset him, and he had to drop out. And Ben's been a standard bearer of first member of the Half Century Club now. At that point, the membership also is limited to people who are official numbered runners. Bandit runs did not count. You had to be numbered and had to be consecutive. We now, from that 16 core group, the BAA recognized, we are now 159 strong, including 14 women. We have people from 30 states, 44 from Massachusetts leading the way, 6 from Canada, 1 from Russia, 11 are deceased. So we have a total of 4,718 Boston finishes among those 159 members. 95 are in the active streak group that the BAA recognizes. I always continued listing people even who have retired and from injuries or whatever reason, or even being deceased. And I figured these people should not fall into the cracks of history and be forgotten. So that list of the BAA, of the Quarter Century Club, I'm keeping, and hopefully the BAA will one day include them in their publicity too.
Thank you, Ron, and we thank you for your dedication and your foresight. And without you, there wouldn't be a QCC, and I'd be sleeping late on Patriots Day most of the time. Next, I'd like to introduce Mae. She's one of the women in our QCC club, and she has over 30 Boston marathons. Mae, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Mae Shoemaker. I actually live not far from the start line in Stowe, Massachusetts, and I have 29 consecutive marathons. So this virtual will be my 30th, and I actually have 34 Bostons, missed one year when I had my daughter early on in, which I didn't know I was going to have a streak at that point. So waiting for her to run, 3 of my children have actually run Boston as well, waiting for her to close out the family with running the marathon. So near and dear to my heart, start line right there. You can't miss it.
All right, thank you, Mae. We'll be looking for you. Next, from sunny Florida is Jim, and he's working on his 40th. Take it away, Jim.
Hey, I'm Jim Musante, and I'm from New Smyrna Beach, Florida. I am working on number 40. Had planned for a big one for 40. We had 40 people coming from around the country. The original people, I went to Boston number 1, driving up from Florida, were part of it. Kind of will recreate that on September 7th at 5 a.m. Try and beat the Florida heat. Very, very excited about getting number 40 under my belt.
All right, Jim, we wish you all the best. And I saved the best for last. It's marathoning, but this is our cleanup hitter. I'd like to introduce Ben. It's an honor and privilege to introduce him. He has run 52 consecutive Boston marathons. He's run more consecutive Boston marathons than Mr. Ben Beach. He was the first member of the Half Century Club, and that 52 in a row at Boston is not only a Boston Marathon record, it's my understanding that it is a world's record for consecutive marathons at the same marathon for 52 years. So Ben, tell us a little more about yourself.
Well, thank you, Mark. I was all set to be a major league shortstop until I got to junior high school, and I got cut from the baseball team, and it was pretty clear that if you could see me, you'd see there's no way I could play that sport or football or basketball, my other 2 sports. I'm sort of built like Bill Rogers, and I finally realized that I should be running instead of doing those other things. One of the biggest thrills of my life was that first one in 1968. It was a hot day. Amby Burfoot was a winner. I didn't know if I could go that far. I've got this little card here that has all my training for that day. I didn't know anything. I started at 3 miles and built up to 20 2 days before the race. In those days, the marathon was on whatever day April 19th was. It was a Friday that year. This had worked out, and so I'm running down that final stretch to the Prudential building where we finished in those days. Looking forward to my beef stew and the shower and all that. And here's a guy who's sort of a washout athletically, and suddenly there are thousands of people cheering me, and my name's being announced. I mean, it was just an amazing moment, and as exciting as it was, I said afterwards, that's it, I'm not going to do this again. But I think a lot of us feel that way, and I came around and decided to keep at it. I wasn't trying to do a streak until much, much later. And that's based on my times have ranged from 2:27 to 6:05, which is what I did last time. And I'm embarrassed by that, but I've got this dystonia, which is a movement disorder, which has screwed up my gait. So I just do what I can.
Well, Ben, you're inspiration to all of us, and wow. So briefly, I'm Mark Buciak. I live in Chicago, Illinois, and I ran my first Boston Marathon at 19 years of age in 1980, and I paid $5 for the entry fee, and I still have the canceled check. So $5. There was only one T-shirt to select from, so and that was $5. There was no gender T-shirts; it was all neutral, which meant it was probably a men's T-shirt. I'm very happy to report that that t-shirt in April of 1980. Not only do I still have it, it still fits me. So, in 1983, I ran my personal best Boston and personal best marathon, 2 hours and 30 minutes and 25 seconds. So I'm forever grateful to the Boston Athletic Association and the people of Boston for helping me accomplish my running achievements. I'm also, I don't know if it's a record, but I've completed the last 14 Boston marathons with a cow valve in my heart. So I'm very fortunate to Dr. McCarthy and Northwestern Hospital in Chicago. He had a real good day, February 1st, 2006, and I keep moving along. Jim, let's go to you real quick, and it's going to be the same question for everybody. Why in the world, on the third Monday of April, Patriots Day, why do you keep coming back to Boston? Jim, you could answer this one first, and we'll go through our panelists accordingly.
That's fine. With me, it kind of goes back to the first time I ran too. I had qualified by 22 seconds back in 1981 in January at the Savannah Marathon. Went to Boston, really not knowing what to expect. I had not trained any hills, only 5,000 people back then. And the crowds were just absolutely incredible. I thought, this is a sport that, I'm not a football player. I'm not a baseball player, not a basketball player. I'm a normal, everyday runner. I like to train, and to see people for 26 miles, they're looking in the Boston Globe, the Herald, they're finding your name, they're yelling, "Go Jim from Florida, go Jim." The upper half of my body at the end of the run hurt more because I was high-fiving everybody along the course. Everybody that mentioned my name, "Go Jim." I ran across the road, high five this way, high five that way. And I remember coming by the Bill Rogers Running Center, coming on to Beacon at 22 miles across the train tracks. I was talking to a guy next to him. I was blowing up. I had qualified with 249. You had to qualify under 250. And the crowds didn't have the barricades back then. And we're running side by side, and the crowd just surged. He disappeared. I kept running. I never saw him again. Kept high-fiving. And I said, I will do this race. And if I can't run it, I will spectate it. Unbelievable amount of crowd support. And that's what kind of has gotten me into it, keep me coming back, and I will continue chasing Bennett Beach.
Well, Jim, I could echo everything you said. And believe it or not, people ask me after the race, what part of your body is hurting the most? Your arms, your legs, your back, your neck? And I tell them, it's my ears that are hurting the most. And that's from all the staunch supporters in Boston yelling and screaming. And back then in the 80s, and I'm sure everybody could recall, but for those of us who weren't running the Boston Marathon in the 80s, there were no fences, there was no constraints, there were no ropes, and 2-4 lane streets were down where barely two runners could go side by side. And that doesn't happen anymore. But there was a gauntlet. You couldn't stop, even if you wanted to. It was so intense. Hey, Mae, what brings you back year after year? And Boston, in a way, is kind of that's your home course. Right?
Yeah, I watched for a couple of years, and a friend of mine who was a newscaster in Boston back in '86 ran, and we watched him, and I thought, I could do that. I never run more than 6.2 miles in my life. I ran just recreationally. I play other sports and coach, but not running. And he said the next year, he said, if I can get you a number, will you run? And so my first marathon was a sort of wasn't a charity number, but it was a number from the television station. And like others, I said, I will never do this again. When I was finished, my knee hurt. I was not in great condition, but I ran a 3:17. I really didn't have any idea how good that was, or what kind of time I was really capable of. So lo and behold, winter came, like November, December, and I thought, you know what? I had such a good time. I think I could do that again. And that was the beginning of my running. It was really a dare from the newscaster. And I go back because I've lived there. And like I said, I'm from a town that's very close. And I can't imagine Patriots Day doing anything else if and when I can't run or I retire or whatever happens. I think I'm going to have to go far away not to be there, because it just gets in your blood. And I just can't imagine not being on that course anymore. It's just something that's part of me. So that's why I keep coming back. And I said I would quit when my kids all started running, and when they all accomplished. I mean, they were all runners, and now 3 of them have run with 1 more to go. They said, Mom, you'll never end. It doesn't matter. We'll be pushing you in the wheelchair if we have to. So we'll see.
Hey, Ron, what brings you back year after year after year?
I began thinking that running was a futile, stupid sport. When we were in high school, we used to watch a guy running down the street, and we laughed at the guy. Hell, look at that guy. He was a math teacher, I think, from the adjoining nearby town. His name was Tony Sapienza, was one of the top masters runners in New England. And I learned after I ran Boston, but running never entered my life until when I was in the Army. We were drafted and had to run in basic training. The guy kept running after me, trying to make me run faster to get under the 8-minute mile limit. After that, I read Ken Cooper's book, in aerobics, and that's what got me started, taking a 12-minute test while I was still in the Army. But I left, and it was the inspiration of seeing a fellow artist diploma student at the New England Conservatory finishing about 2:45. I just happened to be stopped at Mass Avenue trying to get home. I was having a lesson at the conservatory. At the time I was coming home, and I saw him there, and I said, gee, I can do that. I want to do that. So that started me going. And when I finally qualified, 74, I ran my first Boston with a stress fracture. Had my ankle all taped up. Couldn't run that too well, so I took it off that morning. After 8 miles, the pain went away. I did a 3:20 that year, and again, I live pretty close to Boston. I'm 25 miles from Boston, and about a 45-minute ride down to Hopkinton. So I'm an obsessive compulsive kind of guy. Once I get something going, I guess most of us, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this for over close to half a century. At least Ben is past that. I'm getting close to it. Just part of my life, running Boston every year. April is Boston Marathon time. And in 1999, when Neil Wagant and I teamed up just after Boston College, and we ran together the last 6 miles. He had remembered me from a 100-kilometer race. I guess we ran down to Lake Warramog. So he said, okay, let's run together. We got down to the last quarter mile. I said, shall we finish together or we race it? So we finished together that year. And that picture of the 2 of us finishing was in the BAA program that year that they honored Johnny Kelly, and that was the 2001 program that after I then formed the Quarter Century Club. So it's just part of who I am, Boston. I just can't imagine not going to Boston. Mark had his, about the same time Mark had his heart valve. I had a heart attack, that's 2007. But I had it early enough and Thanksgiving Day to still recover in time for Boston, so I never missed my streak. And I just imagine I'll keep going until, right now I'm suffering from an Achilles tendon problem, so I'm only running about 2 miles a day, so I'm not going to be doing the virtual. So I'll have to wait till April, but hopefully I'll recover.
Well, thank you, Ron. Ben, what keeps you coming back? We know everything about the staunch supporters, but anything else you'd like to add?
Well, as Mae said, it gets in your blood. I've been doing it since I was a teenager, so it's hard to stop. It's part of my identity, and it's a unique event, as we've all learned quickly. It's got all that history to it. It's got those Boston fans. It's well organized. It's a spectacular course, a great time of year in a city with a lot of esprit de corps. It's just, there's nothing like it as far as I'm concerned. And so as long as I can keep moving, I hope to be there.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I'm going to interject something. Ben pointed it out. It is an outstanding event. And maybe some of our viewers, maybe many of our viewers today have never run the Boston Marathon. You do not have to run the Boston Marathon to experience Boston Marathon weekend under normal circumstances. It's one of the greatest sporting events, and you don't have to buy a ticket. I encourage people to come out when we're back on the roads, back on the streets of Boston, to come out and just come out for the weekend, and I guarantee you, you will have a wonderful time. So our next topic, and we may be not experts on it, but we may have our secrets. We're going to share them with everyone, is longevity. So all we need is not a story necessarily, but just one or two things that keep us running. And I'm going to start real quickly. The basic thing that has kept me running, and I alluded to it earlier in the video, I go for my annual physical every year and make sure it has an EKG. Without that simple test, somebody else would be the moderator today. So, and did you know, let's have a marathon fact. Boston Marathon required all runners to have a physical on the morning of the marathon. Now, granted, this was back in the 1920s and 30s, I believe, and they didn't have 2,000 or 22,000 runners. Maybe they had 200 runners. But everybody would get a physical in the gymnasium in Hopkinton before they could head to the starting line. So the BAA doesn't do that, otherwise it would take too long, obviously. But it's so important that you go for your annual physical and you tell your doctor, I'm a marathoner. Is there any reason I shouldn't do it? Jim, why don't you continue? What's a quick tip or two for your longevity?
My longevity definitely is cross training. I've always been a bicycle rider, a kayaker, canoe, swim. I live on a lake. I swim just about every day. So with me, it's just been doing a little bit of everything. Obviously, the most is running, but almost every day I go out for a bike ride too. And by 4 to 5 days a week, I do a swim for the upper body. I think with me, it's orange juice has been my key ingredient. My dad was a citrus grower. I've drank orange juice fresh every day of my life, really. And I think I've never been sick, never missed a day of work in 18 years. My diet has been not the greatest, but orange juice has been a key in my life. And then all my cross training, which will always continue.
Very good. Thanks, Jim. Ben, you want to jump in? What keeps you cooking?
I would second that cross training most of all. Probably 25% of my exercise is running and the rest is other stuff. I run only every other day. I used to run every day, as most of us do or did. And I stretch a lot. I'm still inflexible, but I figure I'd be even worse off if I didn't do what I do.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and I used to run 90, 100, 110 miles a week, and now I'm doing 40 or 50, so less than half. And cross training really helps. You have to run smarter, not harder. Mae, what do you have for us?
I do run every day, but I think my number one thing is I try to listen to my body, and I don't run with a watch, which something, unless my kids are telling me we want to know where you are kind of thing. But I found that, you know, if I just don't feel like pushing myself, I don't, because my body's telling me not to. And if I feel like I got it in me, you know, I might go an extra 4 miles, whatever. But I really try to listen to what my body is telling me. And, you know, I'm not concerned about time, especially at this point in my life. I just want to be able to run another marathon. And, you know, I've run several other marathons. Obviously, nothing compares to Boston, and I only want to be healthy. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 10 years ago, and I actually, my doctor said, run your marathon, I'll meet you at the finish line, and took care of it after that. So, you know, I really try to keep running because it keeps me mentally healthy as well, but I just, you know, I just try to listen to what my body's telling me to do.
Wow. Well, you're amazing, survivor of cancer, and you're out there doing it. So
I didn't miss a day when going through chemo. You know, I walked some of it. You know, I had, it's just like the marathon, running gets in your blood. And I said, you know what, if something's going to happen to me, I want it to happen doing the things that I love to do. And so I kept going, and my doctors were fine with it. And it's actually helped, you know, with all the medication and the drugs, that they're actually, you know, as far as bone health and everything else, they're saying we don't have to worry about you because you're running. So.
okay. Keep up the good work. And I'm sure you'll be ahead of me too, so I'll try to catch you. Ron, you're up.
Well, I'm sort of in a, just at this point, a very pale reflection of what I used to do. I always had an 8-week focus period of training before Boston. I always did every Monday before the 8 weeks prior. I did a 20-miler every Monday morning, and then tapered down ahead of before Boston. Right now, I'm going to be 78 in about 3 weeks. So, and with the Achilles problem you know, I mentioned the obsessive nature of people, most of us in the Quarter Century Club. The other streak I had 1 day short of 32 years, but I hadn't missed a day of running either. And then I had my heart attack in Dee McGilvery's Thanksgiving Day race. But now I have another streak going that's almost 13 years. So I'll go out every day. I have no secrets to impart. At this point, I'm just wanting to be there on the third Monday of every April, and finish this race. So far, I've managed to average, for the 46 finishes I've had, my average is about 3 hours and 48 minutes. So it's incredible that that's still that low when I consider the last 5, 6, 7 years I've been getting close to the 6-hour range. Last couple of years, Ben and I have been together when about the 23, 24 mile point. Once I thought, gee, if I beat him this year, but when we did the net times came by, he beat me at that point. But I'm just, I do not do any stretching. I should. Every time my wife keeps telling me I should be stretching. I know I should, but I don't. I just go out and run because, okay, I've only got so much time to run. And it's a very short period of time I'm running. Couple of miles a day is all I'm doing now. So but I just won't miss it. Even though a couple of doctors have told me for the Achilles tendon, stop running for a while, but I can't do that. So I'm just going to run as little as possible, and hopefully this will recover by next April. So I don't have any.
I wish you the best, and if anybody has an injury, this is a good year to have the injury. So look at it that way. So our next topic, and this one could go on for like days and weeks and years. What is your most fond memory at the Boston Marathon? So Ben, you want to start off?
I think the one I mentioned earlier, that first year when I was so pleased that I could finish faster than I thought I could. And it is hard to come. I mean, every year is a thrill to go down that last stretch for sure. And there was one moment about 10 years ago that sticks in my mind. I was running through, I think, Framingham, but I can't recall. I've forgotten most of what I've done on all these races. Some kid who's maybe 10 years old was on my left, and he somehow got my attention, and I looked at him, he said, "I believe in you." Now, he didn't know who I was, obviously. He probably said it to 1,000 people that day. But it was just a wonderful moment. And I thought, what a great kid to say something like that to somebody. And that's sort of the epitome of the Boston Marathon fan. These people just cheering you on. They're smart, and about the course and the race, and they say nice things.
Yeah, that's I call them the staunch supporters, the best marathon fans anywhere in the world. And there's 3, 4, 5 generations at the same corner where their family has been for decades. It's unbelievable. Mae, what's your most fond memory of your Bostons?
You know, when you were suggesting what topics we might be talking about, I was thinking about this question because I think that every single year I have a new fond memory. There's something, whether that memory is always happy and always a fond memory, but every single year there's a different memory that sticks with me. And you know, I think the thing that's most consistent is when I get to pass the Wellesley girls and get to the center of Wellesley, and that's usually where my family is, seeing them every year, and then finally having my kids waiting for me at the end because they've finished it these last couple of years. Those have probably been, you know, the best memories that I've had. You know, we all have, you know, not so fond memories from the marathon bombing year, and I think that sticks out in everybody's head, but it's certainly not a fond memory. But every year is a new memory. There's something there that I try to grab onto and say, yep, this was a good year, even if it's just that I finished.
That's great. Yeah, every year is a fresh start, and you know it could hit. Ron, what's your single most favorite memorable moment in your Boston Marathon experience?
1976 Boston. The run for the roses, run for the roses,
The hoses.
run for the hoses year. Yeah, I had trained intensely with heat training that year, Ron Dawes method, and going out in 80, 85 degrees with multiple layers of clothes, wool hats, mittens, I had 20-mile runs, no water. And I thought I was really in shape for that. And I mentioned this, in fact, I've been talking to Jack Fultz lately we reminisced about this. The year he won, it was 116 degrees in the sun at that thermometer at that gas station when we left the gym that day. The roads were soft. I remember feeling the soft, the squishy roads. There's no shade anywhere. People were being picked up by ambulances within the first 3 miles that were falling off the side of the road. And I really felt, with that training, though, I finished with a 3:13 that year, and I marveled at Jack Fultz's 2:20 to go through that pain. How did I don't know how you handled that, Ben, that year?
That's when the race started at 12 noon, not 10 a.m. And I remember seeing the news reports on the news back in Chicago. I was 16 years old in high school on cross country team. And I looked at that and I said to myself, I will never run that race in my life. Well, things changed. That was a tough year. Hey, Jim, what do you have as your single most?
Pretty much like what Mae said, every year there's something that happens that I will never forget. One thing that sticks out in the early years was the respect for Johnny Kelly. And people would not go home on the course until Johnny ran past them. And so somewhere in the mid 80s at Athletes Village, which been to 39 straight years, they have a band, they have a stage up there, they get local talent. And as the day progresses, more people come in and it gets to be packed like sardines in Hopkinton. So they have all this entertainment going on, and they had trouble getting the entertainers to the stage. And they get up there and do their thing, and then all of a sudden they announce, we have a special treat for you, it's Johnny Kelly. And it was in one of his latter years, and they had him in a golf cart, and everybody between him and the stage, the crowd parted like Moses parting the Red Sea. He went up on stage and he starts singing, dancing, leading everybody in songs, doing little ditties, and everybody, it just makes you want to run seeing somebody like that. He throws out the first pitch at the Red Sox game. He was everywhere. And I'll never forget him up on stage, just entertaining 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 people that day. Just touched me. And the respect of all the Boston Marathon spectators of never going home till he passed him. I thought a tribute to a great man. And back then I was thinking, I will follow his footsteps to keep running Boston as long as I can. So that's it.
What a great memory, Jim. And for those of you watching who may have somehow not know the name Johnny Kelly, again, as Ron said, we dedicated the QCC to his legacy, his energy, and just 3 magnificent stats on Johnny Kelly. He finished first twice, 10 years apart. I think 1926 and 1936, or Jack Fleming knows. Sorry, Jack. 1936 and 1946. He ran in the Olympics in Germany and gave Hitler a nose up as he walked by. Johnny Kelly has the record for the most starts and finishes of the Boston Marathon. 61 starts and 58 finishes. The 58 were not consecutive, but 58 finishes. So, and lastly, Runner's World named him the runner of the century, ending in 1999. So I had the pleasure of meeting him several times, and he had fire in his eyes even into his 90s. A couple of quick ones for me. Certainly my first Boston Marathon at 19 years of age, I'll never forget. My personal best marathon in time, I'll never forget. 1981, my second Boston Marathon. My parents came to see me run, and they were at Boston College at the top of Heartbreak Hill. The 100th Boston Marathon was unbelievable because I had more friends from Chicago and around the world come and run, and we stayed a whole week. The 2 others that really stand out in my mind is, 2006 when I completed the Boston Marathon after 11 weeks of open heart surgery. If you want to read my story, my webpage is theroadtoboston.info, and just matters of the heart. You can see my story. But last year was very special. My 10-year-old twin daughters, Ella and Amelia, along with my wife, who's had 13 Boston Marathons, they saw me cross the finish line of my 40th Boston Marathon. That is a memory that I will never forget. The next topic, and Ben, we would start with you. When and where and are you running the virtual Boston Marathon? And are you doing anything special to make it real Bostonian? So, Ben, you're up.
Well, I don't have the details worked out. I'm going to have to watch the weather. In Washington, where I live, the average high at that point of the year is usually 79 or 80 degrees. Not quite Floridian, but warm. And it's the most humid month of the year here. So I'm probably going to pick the day as we get closer and the forecasts are coming out. I want a course with some shade and not too hilly. And I've got a couple friends and family members who are going to be with me for all or part of it. And so I'm trying to sort all that out. The idea of doing something Bostonian is good, and I haven't come up with that either. So I'm not much to answer your question right now. Check back.
Okay, well, thank you, Ben, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Ron, what are you having? I know you've been having trouble with your Achilles, and
I have to pass on the. I'd love to do the virtual, but I have to pass on it. My Achilles will not stand it. Just gonna have to wait for it to recover, and wait till next year in April. So I'm probably the only one that's out of this group here that's not going to do it. So I have to. I'm passing.
well, we wish you a full recovery, and as I say, if you had to be injured, this is the year to be injured. And according to the BAA, and not only for QCC members, but all future marathoners, my understanding is the ruling is if you run the virtual according to the guidelines, it counts as another marathon in your streak. If for whatever reason you do not run the marathon, the virtual Boston Marathon, for whatever reason, it does not count negatively, and your streak will maintain and stay intact. Okay, Nate, you're up. What's your plan?
Well, I've been spending most of the time at my house in New Jersey, not in Massachusetts, since we were forced to quarantine from COVID, and so I had to teach virtually from New Jersey, and I still haven't been back to Massachusetts. So I'm probably will be in Massachusetts around that time, but I think I'll come back here because most of my running has been here. I have been injured, so I don't think first time in my life I've had an injury, and so I'm not planning anything big, but the familiarity of the island that I live on and the flat. I know people say you shouldn't run a lot of flat, but I won't be going fast enough to worry about hills and ups and downs. So I'll probably be doing it someplace different than Boston, which will be another memory that's going to be created.
Well, thank you. We wish you success too. Jim, you already ran one on Patriots Day in April, and so what's going to be your virtual run and wear, and anything Bostonian in the mix for you?
Yes, I did my dry run on Patriots Day, although it was 10 degrees cooler on Saturday. It was cooler on Sunday. It was cooler on Tuesday and Wednesday. On Monday here in Florida, it was 77 degrees with a 98% humidity at 5 o'clock in the morning. I went out on Patriots Day, had some friends on bicycles, had some friends run the first 10, next 5, the next 8. My wife joined me, who's done Boston a number of times also, double digits, joined me for the last 6. So that was kind of my dry run, not knowing what the BAA was going to do with any of the times, but I wanted to run on Patriots Day. It was a rough day. September is about the worst month in Florida. Our low temperature will be 77. So I'm starting at 5 o'clock, essentially with the same people. I do have my kids on bicycles. They will hand us Gatorades. We also have 4 other Boston Marathon qualifiers that are all doing the virtual. I got them to run with me. So we should have it pretty well wired, the exact same course. At the end, we're going to have things made up to hang off the condominiums along the beach. We'll be running on New Smyrna Beach. It's right by Daytona Beach for a couple of miles. It's a flat course, just extremely, extremely hot. So we have some posters made. I have some stuff that I've taken through the years from Boston. I will put around town. It's my 40th. I'm usually pretty much of a under the radar kind of guy. I had 15 Bostons. Nobody even really knew I had run one of them. I don't like the limelight, but for this one, 40, I was going to let it all hang out as I was on Patriots Day before it got canceled. So we're kind of mimicking the same thing now. At the end, we have mimosas, and we'll have a little party with a bunch of neighbors, everybody that joins me. There'll probably be at least 30 of us to help me and assist me in running. Along with it, I said the Boston official qualifiers that have officially qualified to do the virtual too. So we'll have a good time together. It'll be a fun day. Looking very forward to it. I'm trying to run 4:00:00 on my 40th. That's the goal. I think.
Good. Well, we wish you success too. And my plans are as follows, and my Bostonian help and support is as follows too. First of all, weather permitting, I'm planning on coming, running on the first day, Labor Day, and I hope it's not going to be too laboring, September 7th. And if the weather's not good, then I'll delay it accordingly. Instead of running on the beautiful Chicago lakefront, which is free and open for 36 miles, I'll be running just outside of Chicago through the county forest preserves on a beautiful paved bike path that's 70% shaded. The night before, I will be watching John Durham, who's the director of Boston, the documentary. So I got my CD all ready to watch and to get ready for that. So that's number one. And then number two, I have my shirt I only wear when I run the Boston Marathon. So got to have the American flag. You have to be strong. And I went to the ball. I have to make up for our basketball team on that. This year, as most of the years, I dedicate the Boston Marathon to a mission or a cause or whatever. And just recently, my 12-year-old best friend and best training partner ever, my black lab, Fenway, has passed on. And I'm dedicating my Boston Marathon virtual to him. And Fenway, I'm ready. I know what to look for. My friends are going to be holding this sign at the 25-mile mark in the woods, because Fenway Park, as most people know, and Kenmore Square is the 25-mile mark. So Fenway, this one's for you. And then, of course, it's not, the really reason why I run the Boston Marathon, the tradition, the staunch supporters, and everybody. But in the North End, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for the Bova Bakery and all the goodies. just 24 hours a day. It's great. So I have already obtained my care package from the Bova Bakery. My wife is hiding it so I don't consume it before the race. Perishable, fragile, locked up. But anyways, so this, I'm not going to beat you, Ben. I'm not going to get a banana, but I'm going to have a cannoli and a peanut butter bar and tiramisu and whatever else is in it. The biggest trouble is my daughters may find this and eat it all before I even start the marathon. But you could order your care package like I did from Bova Bakery. So besides bringing in an airplane of Wellesley women and Heartbreak Hill, I think I got everything. So, but I'm also inviting my friends, my high school coach. There's people who've never seen me run the Boston Marathon, and this is their chance to bring Boston to Chicago and cheer me on. So I thank all of them, and especially my family, my wife Barry, and my daughters Ella and Amelia, and Fenway, we're missing you, and my other two dogs. We're going to make a good day of it, and I encourage everybody watching, make it as festive as possible. Bring out your staunch supporters and make the Boston Marathon virtual very, very exciting. We have to remember the Boston Athletic Association is older than 124 years. They have been supporting athletics for almost a century and a half. Tom Brill, Gloria, Jack Fleming, they have been supporting athletics and particularly the marathon and running for over a century. And now it's our turn as runners to show our support for the Boston Marathon by taking it to our neighborhoods and our areas and showing sportsmanship and support during very difficult times. This is certainly one of the most challenging Boston Marathons for all of us, but we're going to show the spirit of the Boston Marathon, be it in Florida or Maine or Maryland, Washington, D.C., or Chicago. So let's, we're tough and let's show them our stuff. But anyways, I'd like to thank Mae and Ben, Ron, Jim for your insights. And we'd like to thank our viewers for signing in and watching us. If you have any questions on the QCC or training, feel free to contact me. roadtoboston.info is my webpage. I'd like to thank the BAA for their help, to PK for inviting the QCC members and myself to put forth this video, and we wish you happy and safe running. Let's say goodbye from the QCC.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah.
Keep running.
Stay young.
Yeah. Forever young.
Remember, this is Boston, the Quarter Century Club. We only one person can actually win Boston, but this is every Boston Marathon runner's opportunity to join something. It says Boston Everyman's Club. If you can, if a goal to go for is 25 Bostons is quite an achievement. It's something that this is, I guess, every man's win about running Boston. To belong to aspire, have something to aspire to. We've had many people who have been new members. They've known about us for years. And when they finally reached that 25-mile mark, 25-year mark, they're just so thrilled to be now a member of this really an elite group. Not for winning, but who come back to enjoy this race and to support Boston Marathon and the BAA year after year after year. It's the greatest race that's in the world, in my opinion. So that's how I'll sign off there.
Thank you, Ron, from our president of the PCC. We'll see you on the roads, and we'll see you at Boba's. Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Have a great night, everybody. We'll be seeing you. Have a good race on September 7th through the 14th.
Keep adding those miles, Jim.
I will.